Hi there, and welcome to the Live Vybrant Podcast, where we explore how to live with energy, purpose, and intention. I'm your host, Joshua Haag, a holistic lifestyle, performance, and success coach with a background in professional sports and 2 decades of coaching experience. Each week, I sit down with experts across a multitude of fields, including wellness, finance, and personal growth, to uncover practical strategies that will help you thrive in every area of life. Let's dive in and help you live your most vibrant life. I'm so excited to have Clinton Ford, the founder of Madjaw, a voice AI company, and mainly an AI receptionist software that I've personally integrated into my own businesses. I'm really excited to bring him on this week to talk a little bit of AI, a little bit of the future of marketing and entrepreneurship. Clinton, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Josh. Great to be with you.
Now, you just got done telling me you got back from an excellent seminar for Go High Level. And for those of you not knowing anything about it, Go High Level is a CRM, which is kind of something lightly you can call it, just it helps run the back end of the business and client relationships. We'll just leave it at that. But in turn, this mothership company put on this wonderful event you were telling me, and I want you to go back down this path of this unique keynote speaker that ended the seminar. Tell me that little story again, because I think it is so fascinating. Go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah. So Josh, it's called Level Up Summit. This is my first one to attend with an annual summit. And so they've got great speakers. And today we closed out the first day with an inspirational speaker, Jesse Eitzler. And he is the owner and leader for multiple companies that he's leading today and has already exited some of these companies. So exciting history that he's had. And he just shared an example from his perseverance with business, trying to encourage other businesses and startup owners who are getting started, talking about comparing this to a race, a 100-mile race that he ran. And he talked about his training, how he'd always get stuck at this certain spot in the training and just couldn't push through this wall. And so his coach, Chad Wright, taught him some key phrases. And so one of those was this mindset. Number one, I will not quit. Keep saying that phrase and never give voice to pain. So you're going to feel pain, of course, but don't give it a voice. Don't speak it. And then if someone asks, how do you feel? To always respond, outstanding. Just having that positive attitude. So then he shared how during the actual race, he got to like mile 75 or something and felt like he couldn't go on. I mean, this was the furthest he had run, I think. And he's like, I don't think I could go any further than this. And that's where Chad was like, hey, I don't think I ever told you this, but I never get tired. It's a really unique attribute I had. And he said, when we get to the next aid station, let's stop, let's take a rest. And I want you to tell them this secret that we never get tired. I want you to say it. And so they went up to the workers at this aid station where they stopped, got a rest. And he said, hey, I've never told anyone this, but I never get tired. So he gave that a voice and he was able to continue on and complete the race. It's such a big milestone for him. And then he compared that to business, just having the tenacity to stick with something, to really show up and to just pour everything in. He talked about, if you're going to go into business, pour everything in. He said, pour your soul into everything you do. And it's been incredible to see how he's created these businesses by doing that, including this coconut water brand called Zico, which he co-founded and then sold to Coca-Cola and then was able to buy it back. So pretty incredible, from nothing to this company that he said something like 27,000 other beverage companies started in those intervening years, and Coca-Cola only bought 6, he said, including his. So his was one of only 6 to get acquired, and then somehow they didn't run it well and ended up selling it back to him for pennies on the dollars. He was like, what an amazing blessing to get all of this funding initially, and then to be able to go back to them and repurchase it at a fraction of what he had sold it to them for, and bringing the benefits of coconut water to people. So anyway, I just love that story of his tenacity, sticking through the 100-mile race. And sometimes entrepreneurship feels that way. It feels like a 100-mile race.
Sometimes is an understatement. It's an everyday, you're grueling for every ounce, every inch. But I love that. I heard a wonderful quote that most people overestimate what they can do in a year and underestimate what they can do in 10. And realistically, I know I don't know the timeline of this guy, but a 100-mile race sounds like that. 10 years is about that. And that opportunity to realistically sell your company, have that huge win, watch them run it into the ground, sadly, and then buying it back, that had to have taken expansive time. It's a big lesson, kind of to kick off the podcast. Thanks for that, of kind of respecting the timeline and really understanding that to do something great takes way more time than we give it credit for. The likeliness that we're going to pop something out of the park here within the first year is so slim. It's a grind. And I think it's a skill set and a mindset to be able to understand that every day.
Absolutely.
So now what's been your 100-mile race? I know you have a unique, so for those listening, Clinton and I met via a speaking opportunity. And realistically, we connected that way and have really hit it off. He has a pretty unique story in terms of his adventures up until now, really taking Madjaw, by the haunches and starting to drive it forward. So what's been your background? Give us the Spark Notes version of Clinton and what got you here.
Absolutely. So my background is computer science undergrad from Brigham Young University. So I worked at Microsoft in developing software and helping with program management to guide software projects, then studied at the University of Washington where I earned an MBA and began working in the finance team to understand the business, then worked with the marketing team to help them achieve the business metrics and goals, and then went over to Amazon Web Services to help with product marketing initially and later with products. So created new products and launched those products. Later worked at Databricks, helping the partnership with Microsoft on the marketing side, and then also worked with Google Cloud and Amazon Web Services to grow those collaborations and help bring visibility to the success that clients were having with Databricks on those different cloud providers. Then I worked for a couple of smaller startups, helping them get their messaging and positioning for their new products, collaborate with Databricks. And so I've been in the data and AI space for about 9 years. In 2016, I helped Amazon Web Services launch Amazon Polly, a text-to-speech service, and Amazon Recognition, an image recognition service. And over that time, one of the things I've definitely come to see is that data quality is so important to the success of AI, having quality inputs to generate quality outputs. And I've also seen the quality of AI improve dramatically. So the voices, services like 11 Labs, as well as the conversational capabilities of large language models. So I launched a company earlier this year to bring voice AI into local businesses to help them take advantage of AI and be able to answer their phones and handle all those inbound leads so that they don't have to juggle, make that decision and trade off client experience to answer the phone.
Awesome. And so realistically now, I'll hint, my father has been in the big data game for years and years, as long as I've been alive. And a lot of people, I don't think, would understand that AI has actually been around for a long time. It has only been, we'll just say, like consumer facing for what, 2 years, a year and a half, 2 years, which is the big boom that we've seen. But realistically, there has been a massive workload on AI, on the behind the scenes stuff for huge companies, right? And it's more so been, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, but it's been more so in basically how interfaces reach for data and how it compiles their inputs, correct? In terms of what it's been used for. And with the now press forward into the future from this point now on, we're starting to get that consumer facing. And realistically, AI in terms of an AI receptionist, I haven't seen much like it out there other than like I used a comment off camera about Chase Bank, right? You'll get the AI operator, but it's very rudimentary. And the real exciting part for me and those listening is in bringing Clinton on, he has this concept where it's an AI receptionist and he's going to take it and talk to you all about it and tell me about it. But the most interesting part is it's genuinely talking to a person. There obviously are some little snags here and there in terms of lag and things like that, but minuscule. But as I've been training my own, it has been an eye-opening experience as to how realistic AI has become. So why did you start this company? Why did you dive into an AI receptionist specifically? Like, how did this all kind of like grow?
Well, I had been using the high-level platform since about April of 2024. really diving in and learning how to use their automation platform and playing around with some of the AI they had built into the platform. But it was very rudimentary, very early stages. And then suddenly in December and January, so late last year and early this year, the quality of both the voices, but also the conversations became much more natural. So there still is a delay. The typical human will respond within 300 milliseconds. The AI is closer to 600 milliseconds. So it's a noticeable delay still. But when the AI is speaking, the quality is so good. It sounds very realistic. And I just realized this is an opportunity for local businesses to get an ROI from AI. And MIT just recently published a report saying that 95% of enterprise investments in AI projects has not returned on those investments. And yet here's an opportunity for local businesses to get an immediate win, essentially, to get their time back, to be able to prioritize those client interactions and work that they need to do over inbound calls from, spam calls especially, and telemarketers, so they can focus on the things that matter most.
Amazing. And realistically, why do you think it took so long for there to be that big kind of jump forward, so to speak? Like you said, it was like a switch went, right? So it was like, it was average. And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, it was working perfectly. What was that big differentiator? Why?
Yeah, I think the big change was the advancements in large language models and the ability to tap into those via API. So, it wasn't long ago, late 2022, when OpenAI put out ChatGPT and people started, chatting with it and interacting with it, and it just took off. And those initial interactions were generally pretty good, but there were still some weaknesses there. But then they've improved dramatically over time, and so we see their scores on different tests and different measures improve. And then opening that up via API gave developers the ability to bring that into other applications. And so when the high-level team brought in one of the newer models, it was immediately noticeable that the performance and quality of the conversations had improved. And then when they paired that with better, more realistic and lifelike sounding voices, the combination really felt like a conversation with, a real-life human. And it was suddenly something that felt like, okay, the conversation's actually flowing. We're actually moving towards the objectives that the receptionist has, to whether that's booking an appointment, helping with a client issue, answering questions, capturing a message, forwarding calls, suddenly became so capable. And I just realized that it's on a fast trajectory. So within weeks or even months, it's going to be able to do things that were seemingly unimaginable just a year ago.
Well, have you heard about this whole concept of generative AI versus agentic AI? Have you talked about that at all? Yes?
Yes. Yeah, it's
Yes.
definitely been a game changer.
So what would be, in your eyes, the difference, just so we're on the same playing field, and for those listening, what is the difference between generative AI and agentic AI?
So generative AI is being able to not only convert something from one format to another, but to be able to generate or create new kinds of content, whether that's synthesized audio for voice or video. It could be text with large language models, being able to generate text that actually comes together and makes sense and feels like a real blog post or a real article, or conversation based on the context of what's been said in the past interactions. The agentic AI is now where the generative AI is being directed. So there's an agent actually overseeing different steps in the process, rather than simply a single task like an input, give me an output. This is more about, okay, let's go through a process. So that process could include things like, let's greet the caller. Then let's find out what is their need. What is the reason for their call? Now let's understand who this audience is. Is it a client, an existing client? Is it a prospect? And based on that, let's look for some different outcomes that we could achieve, setting up those objectives and then breaking that down into steps so that we understand what questions to ask to be able to achieve those objectives, and then how to handle unexpected things like, someone asking a question that's unrelated to the topic, or requesting something else that would change the flow, and then being able to handle situations such as, if someone's upset or frustrated. So it can actually detect sentiment during the call. And if it detects that the client or the caller is getting upset, being able to take action to remediate that, like forwarding the call to a human. Having that overall management of a call or a conversation is what becomes a complete game changer. So now it's not just input response. Now it's a conversation. It feels like we're working towards a longer term goal or objective in a way that feels empathetic and human.
I love it. So it's basically, what is that called? Is it executive function? It introduces that level of like task prioritization and a series of steps that you don't have to monitor. I think this is, right, this has been the forefront of where this is going, right? So now it's not only, and this is what made me so beyond happy with the AI receptionist, is I've been waiting for this in terms of marketing. Of can something A/B split test give me data points back? Can I start to get AI to run major pieces of my business, marketing, sales? And maybe it's not as nuanced or as perfect as a human may be, but it should be more consistent, which is what I personally believe will be the game changer for a lot of businesses. Right? Because let's face it, I'm on the floor, right, half the time. I can't be there every time someone calls. And that's the difference. Yeah, I'm super excited. How does Madjaw and your specific, right, going with Go High Level, how does it all integrate on, the client-facing side? How does that kind of work in terms of someone listening to this maybe has a small business like myself? How does it work?
Well, we begin with the standard operating procedure for the receptionist. So we start with a 5 to 7 page document to outline the purpose and the goal of the receptionist, understanding the business, giving them an introduction, the background and purpose, what kinds of products or services the business offers, where they're located, how do clients interact with them or contact them, and then frequently ask questions and examples of their tone of voice and how the brand wants to interact and show up with clients so that it stays true to that interaction. So once we've got that, now that can be used both to train a human receptionist or a virtual assistant, but it can also be fed into as a prompt to the AI receptionist to teach it how to handle these interactions. Once that's done, the next phase is testing it. So we want to thoroughly put it through a variety of different scenarios and see how it handles those interactions to make sure that we feel confident letting it represent the brand out in front of real prospects and clients. And then what we do is we integrate it with the phone system. So if the client has an existing phone system or like a ring order, we put this AI receptionist with their own phone number into the ring order, almost like a person with a cell phone. We just drop that into the ring order so that they can pick up the call if the business owner is unable to answer or is busy. And then if, after hours, they're always available 24/7. And of course, they can handle multiple calls simultaneously, which is a game changer. If you've got a campaign or some kind of an offer out there, it can handle up to 100 simultaneous phone calls inbound.
I didn't actually know that. That's kind of amazing. That's awesome. What have you seen as some of the biggest pitfalls so far? Some of the issues, like if I'm staring at this, thinking about maybe this is a cool idea for my business. What should I be skeptical of or worried about? What are some issues?
So the biggest issue we've encountered is just the comfort of a consumer interacting with an AI. The concept of talking with an AI is brand new to many people. And so one of the things we do is we try to disclose right up front that this is an assistant. It's an AI assistant to the business or the business owner, to be full disclosure, full transparency. So we're not trying to trick anyone or fool anyone into thinking they're talking to a human. We want them to understand it has limitations, set expectations. Once that's established, then sometimes people aren't sure, well, how do you interact with one of these? So sometimes in the greeting, we'll indicate that we can answer questions, we can schedule an appointment, we can take a message or forward calls. And then oftentimes, depending on the type of caller, many times they just have some burning issue or concern or need on the top of their mind. And so just capturing that oftentimes really helps put that caller at ease to know that, okay, they've got me, I'm covered, like they're answering this call. And we'll often send out a text message to the caller and the business owner if it's urgent, just to let everyone involved know that, yep, this is handled, it's documented, like we're processing this, there's work happening, so that they feel confident. And that's the biggest goal really, is for callers to feel like the business understands them, the owner, the staff understand the caller and are there to meet their needs.
Interesting. And I think about, realistically, the number of sales that I've done and trainings that I've done and people I've listened to. At the end of the day, the consumer only really cares about themselves and their needs. You're just someone to help them achieve whatever that is they need to achieve, whether it's a service or a product. And so realistically, I didn't actually expect you to answer that in that way. of what's the biggest problem is that they feel heard, that they actually feel okay with the AI integrating. That's interesting. I've never, like, for me, when an AI picks up, like, I get a little pissed off sometimes of, I wish I could just talk to a person, right? Do you ever have that feeling when you call a plumber or the bank or things like that? But on the other hand, I think it's just one of those things that we're going to get used to over time. I don't know. Because realistically, it's only, you said what, November, December?
Yeah, November and December is when I really saw a big change in this particular platform and its capabilities. So it's very recent.
So what do you think the timeline then is on full integration? What would be your ballpark? What would be your guess for this to really hit full stride in people's businesses in the market?
Oh, that's a good question. I think in the next 6 to 12 months, we'll see voice AI start to show up in a lot more places. And I think people will start to understand a little bit better what kinds of interactions they can expect with it. Because as long as they understand how they can retrieve the value that they want from it, for example, giving answers to their questions, I think they'll be okay interacting with it if they see that it functions well and if they do get consistent responses from it. But I would say, yeah, 6 to 12 months, probably minimum. And it probably depends on the industry, if these are, depending on the demographics, what kinds of clients the business is serving in terms of their level of comfort with it. But as you mentioned, when the banks start using it, when you call up and it's no longer an IVR, interactive voice response where you have to press 1, to speak, to this agent or to speak, for English language or something like that. And then going through menu systems and backing up and star and everyone's trying to hit 0 to go to an operator where you can really just ask it, hey, I just want to book an appointment. Okay, let's do that. Here are the open dates on the calendar. What works best for you?
I didn't know that was called an IVR. I thought that was partially AI. I didn't know, in my head, I didn't disassociate the two. So we're actually, a lot of things are still on an IVR system. Interesting. You taught me something new today. Things I didn't know. Well, I love it. So realistically, how do we work with you? How does it work to integrate you into the system, bring you in? Like, how do I start to work with Madjaw as we wind down here?
Well, the best thing to do is, first of all, we'd love to have businesses connect on our webinars. We have some past webinars on our YouTube channel. I think that's what's most impactful when you hear from other clients the benefits they're seeing with voice AI. It gives the business owners an idea of what's possible. And I think that really should drive everything, is what would the business owner like to achieve? What's their vision for technology? Because at the end of the day, if you're able to implement this successfully, it takes your business to the next level because now other business owners look to you as differentiated. Even though you may be in an industry with lots of other competitors offering a similar service, you're using technology in a way that they haven't even thought of in many cases. For example, I've got a law firm, and the attorneys and the staff will get together once a week and they'll do a contest to see who can stump the AI receptionist. So they'll dial up the AI receptionist and ask all kinds of questions to see who can stump the receptionist. And so it's a competition that also helps improve the quality of the AI. And that was something at Level Up we learned today, is they're going to do an even better job of keeping context per caller so that if you've called in the past, it understands, what's already been discussed and can pick up the conversation where it left off so that it begins to have a longer memory. And that will, again, just personalize the experience further so that it feels like this is an ongoing collaboration. We're working together on a process, not just for this phone call, but over multiple calls, weeks or months that it takes to deliver a solution. So
how would they store that data? That's got to be a massive amount of data.
Yeah, it really is, because all that conversational history typically is, sent as an email transcript out to the business owner, but somehow they're going to capture and contextualize that information, almost like a mini knowledge base. So there's this concept of creating a knowledge base to train the receptionist on deep information. Like, let's say you have an e-commerce store and you want it to know about all the different products in every category. You can do that with knowledge bases. This would be similar, I guess, in a way that there would be like a mini knowledge base for each individual client so that it knows what's been spoken about in the past. And that just takes everything to the next level, where now it's not just a conversation memory. This is across a client engagement, so it really feels more personalized. And the caller then can, ask about order status, the progress on their documents, for their will or for their, estate planning, for example. So I think that's going to take it to the next level. But it all begins with the business owner's vision. What capabilities would they like that receptionist to be able to have? And how do they want to interact with the team so that it's a very smooth handoff and we typically recommend that the AI receptionist have its own name and personality, just so if someone calls in and said, I spoke to Sarah, they know you're talking about the AI receptionist. Okay, it's not a conversation that you and I had. This is a separate conversation. And basically help integrate that with the team's process so that the flow from initial call through onboarding, through the journey of delivering the service, the client feels heard and understood. And at the end of the day, just has great respect for that brand and recommends that brand to other people. So it just continues to help grow the business.
And I love it. I can't tell you how excited I've been this week getting to realistically like that law firm. I've been training my AI. Her name's Athena. She's got a very nice voice.
Love it.
But it's been awesome. And I played the game trying to stump her, trying to teach her. So it's been so cool. I highly, highly recommend anyone listening, reach out to Madjaw. How do we get a hold of you?
So you can go to our website at madjaw.com, madjaw.com. And from there, feel free to reach out through the contact form there, that link. And if you want, you can take a look at some of the demos. We've got some really short clips just so you can listen to it. And then we've got some longer form webinars so you can hear from other business owners and their success.
Yeah, absolutely. I personally can't wait for my next onboarding. I'm still a baby, and I highly recommend those listening, just give them a call, give it a try. I'm a firm believer so far from what I've seen. But regardless, Clinton, thank you so much for coming on today for a little chit chat and introducing some new AI tech to the world.
Thank you, Josh. Excited what you're doing with Live Vibrant and happy to support.
Thank you, buddy. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thank you.